Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, first order of business, please forgive the extra noise that you might hear in the background because we have a neighbor having trees cut. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell document dump. Yes, I have covered this really superficially, and many news organizations have done so, giving you really broad strokes. If you're the type that likes to nitpick and be really anal about the documents, you've come to the right place. So let's get into it. I've tried to organize these into some kind of cohesive and some kind of coherent manner. So first, let's look at the documents that are regarding the attack on Joseph Ryan by Alex Cox. Here we can see that by July 25th, 2019, the detectives are looking into the previous aggravated assault case perpetrated by Alex Cox on Joseph Ryan. So they're looking into it. This document was compiled by Joseph Ryan, and he's talking about the lead up to the children's exchange, the day that he went to see his daughter. And he talks about how early that morning the garage door made a weird snap, like it was caught in the tracks as he was proceeding to the exchange. And that essentially, if you read this, it almost like he feels like he was stalked on his way there by a silver car with headlights. And he asks a neighbor to watch his house as he visits his daughter. It wasn't as if this is correct, that Alex showed up after, maybe he was with Lori or something. No, it's starting to look like maybe he was stalked on his way there. Feel free to pause these at any time and read these portions of the documents at your leisure. They're very enlightening. And this is a portion of the sworn statement by Joe Ryan talking about how at the time of the incident he was in fear of death or serious bodily injury. When Alex first reached for this taser stun gun, I thought he was pulling a handgun on me. I turned to run because I thought he was pulling a handgun. When I was first stunned in the back, I realized he had some kind of taser or shocking device. He made statements that he was going to kill me when he was chasing me. This is sworn under oath on August 9th of 2007. This document appeared in the Joe Ryan child custody case. It was in that document dump, but it also appears here. And in this, the author, which is one of the detectives, says he was called by the victim. In this case, it was Joe Ryan on September 6th. And his daughter, that would be Tylee, had reported seeing him fall to the ground at the time of the incident. So think, this was at the children's exchange. Lori and Tylee were supposed to have been off the property by 15 minutes because that was the way that this exchange went down, that you didn't have people meeting each other in the parking lot. So by the rules, Lori and Tylee were supposed to be gone, okay? And he's saying if she saw the incident, if Tylee saw him fall and be attacked, he thinks that it means that his ex-wife was there to see the incident. In other words, Lori had Tylee sitting there watching her father get attacked by Alex Cox. And when Tylee told him about seeing the incident, she said this in front of his lawyer. So the agencies are starting to request information from each other. And here you see that the law enforcement is saying, I received a copy of the Austin PD report for the assault tasing incident where Joe Ryan believed Alex was going to kidnap and kill him. I'll review it over the weekend, but figured it would be of benefit historically. You think? It's almost like the beginning of all this, right? It is very beneficial historically. Now we're going to look at some of the documents mentioning the death/murder of Charles Vallow. Now, I think we all agree that all the stories of what went on that day from Tylee, from Lori, from Alex, all those stories are bogus. So I'm not going to get into the details of the bat and who hit who and who threatened who because I think we all agree that Charles was set upon. But we are going to talk about what the firemen saw, what the law enforcement saw, what the paramedics saw, and that's what I'm going to show you here. So this is a portion of a law enforcement report. I'm going to read it. Upon entering the front door of the residence, I made announcements for anyone inside to come out with their hands up and make themselves known. There was no movement in the residence, at which time I entered. I observed a white male, now known to be Charles Vallow, laying on the ground in the living room. It appeared Vallow had been shot 2 times in the chest, as there were 2 .45 caliber shells to the immediate right of his body. I checked Vallow for a pulse, which was negative. I then cleared the kitchen and bedrooms in the southwest corner of the residence. In one of the bedrooms, I observed a 2-tone .45 caliber handgun laying in the floor. I then exited the room and cleared the northwest area of the residence with negative results. I have advised dispatch that the scene was safe and for fire personnel to enter. So what this document is telling you is that Charles Vallow had been shot 2 times in the chest. So keep that in mind. There's going to be blood involved here. So let's look at what the first responding EMT saw when she got there. She noticed the patient, that would be Charles Vallow, and 1 bullet on the floor. Okay? There was an absence of signs of breathing, no pulse. She started compressions, and she grabbed the combo pads and the leads and placed them on the patient. Okay, a firefighter pulled up the patient's shirt and noted, there's redactions here, probably is going to talk about the wounds. The EMT observed blood seepage from the upper entry wound at the time that they rolled the patient to view the back, but the seepage was very slow at that point. So now, sometimes in shootings, a bullet can come in, it can exit, it can get lodged somewhere, it can maybe not bleed as much. They're talking here about having seepage. The EMT described seeing a bullet on the floor to the left side of the patient. So the left side, approximately 6 inches from the patient's head. The captain warned others about the bullet, and she attempted to work around it so as not to disturb the evidence. The EMT was asked if she had had any interaction with anyone inside or outside the home. EMT stated she had not. She recalled seeing a man who she believed was, quote-unquote, the shooter, sitting on the sidewalk curb, quote, holding his head. And then the police officer standing with the man directed the crew to the house. And when asked to describe how the man appeared, that would be Alex Cox, by the way, and was holding his head, the EMT said, I can't recall if he had a cell phone. So when asked if the subject appeared to be in any pain or distress, the EMT stated, yeah, he looked like he was frantic, like he was definitely worried. When asked if it looked like the man was in distress from pain, she replied, no, not that I can recall, no. And basically the EMT didn't think that she needed to attend to Alex Cox. She said, no, that was not my initial thought, no. She explained that her mindset at the time was focused on a gunshot victim and not a man sitting on the curb. So now we're going to turn to the firefighter's account of the incident. The firefighter recalled the incident in question and began describing the response from her crew, the incident, and her observations once on the scene. And she recalled seeing a police officer sitting with a gentleman on the curb in front of the house. And the crew went into the residence, into a large open room with a wood floor and no carpet or tile. To the right, she observed the patient on the floor lying on his back, and they checked the patient and found no pulse. She described the home as empty, with no furniture, and seemed like the residents were in the process of moving in or out of the home, and she stated it was just really empty in that space. She described them rolling the patient and, redacted, they placed leads on him and found no heart activity. On the side, let's just mention that now evidence has seemingly come forth that he had been dead quite a while. He'd been dead quite a while by the time 911 was called, allegedly. She described the patient as a big guy. He wore a black t-shirt. She recalled him wearing a larger wristwatch. She cut the patient's shorts open at the side. When asked if she observed anything firearms related or any other weapons, firefighters stated that she did not. She then added that she had observed a bullet laying 3 to 4 feet away from the patient on the dark-colored wood floor. She described being positioned to the patient's left side and observing the bullet to her own right. Firefighters stated when the crew left the home, she observed an SUV or a van, maroon or red in color, parked on the street. A middle-aged woman and a younger girl, 12 to 14 years old, by the way, this would be Lori and Tylee, were standing near the vehicle parked across the street. She thought the vehicle may have had redacted, but wasn't sure. She didn't recall seeing the man who sat at the curb again at the time the fire department crew exited the home. When they arrived at the home, the man sat, quote, just like chillin', seemed calm, just hanging out. The officer was seen standing in front of him, she said. When asked if she noticed any injuries on the subject, firefighter stated she had not. No one from the fire department crew spoke to the man or assessed him for any injuries. No one brought their attention to any possible injuries to the man sitting on the curb. And I want to maybe pause it to you because he really didn't have any except for some little scratch, allegedly from a baseball bat being wielded by a semi-pro. Yeah, right. And the reason that I bring this back up again is because this is proof that Charles was shot twice. And we do believe now that Charles possibly, the trajectory for the first bullet might have been with two people standing looking at each other, but seemingly the second bullet, the one that left markings on the floor, was maybe done in a coup de grace manner. In addition, it seems that now it's coming out that they dawdled maybe 40 minutes before calling 911, possibly to ensure that Charles was good and dead. So now we're going to look at some of the pictures of Alex Cox at Mesa Falls with another person seemingly on October 6, 2019. This was in the document dump. Here's a picture that someone has taken of Alex with his camera aimed at the falls. Here's a picture that he seemingly took that day of the falls. Here's another picture that he seemingly took that is at the same time as the one taken of him, and you can see whoever took it was seemingly wearing a white shirt. You may be asking, well, what's the point of this? Well, what was going on around October 6th? Well, October 4th is the day that Tammy Daybell was told allegedly by Chad Daybell to go visit her parents in Springville, Utah. You know, we don't know why he wanted Tammy out of the house. You know, there's speculation that maybe there was a plan for her murder to occur elsewhere. That's wild speculation. Or it could be that the bodies on Chad's property at that point needed tending. You know, maybe they needed to, have a fire. We don't know, okay? Allegedly, there's also some text messages between Chad and Lori around this time talking about Tammy being, quote-unquote, in limbo and possessed by a spirit named Viola. And then when October 8th happens, that's 2 days after these pictures, Alex is doing searches on the Grendel drop. Remember where the Grendel ballistics and the drop would be the distance from the target, okay? So, yeah, that's the significance of these pictures. We really don't know what was going on. So now let's take a look at Kay and Larry Woodcock's correspondence with law enforcement, and you will notice that they had correspondence with law enforcement before JJ was murdered. They had concerns as soon as Charles was murdered. Yeah, this is going to be a little tough to look at because you'll know in retrospect if something was done right away, most of these murders could have been avoided, in my opinion. I went over these texts in my previous video, so I won't rehash this, but this was between Kay and Lori. She was trying to get JJ to come up to Charles's memorial. So I won't go over this one again, but this is where it starts. Here, Kay Woodcock is in communication with Nathan, the law enforcement officer, and she is just having trouble touching base consistently with JJ. She talks about how JJ finally FaceTimed them the day before for a whopping 33 seconds, and she mentions when he calls often, it's not unusual for him to quickly hang up, but then he will call back and hang up 5 or 10 times, and she just thought that was adorable. And she said how she hadn't seen or talked to him in approximately 2 weeks before that, and that all the contact had been extremely short. Listen to how much she is on about this situation. She says he's very easy to manipulate, and his diabolical, homicidal mother knows this. When he calls, his voice is always exuberant and loud. He was subdued, to say the least, on yesterday's call. We were encouraged seeing him, yet worrisome due to his lack of excitement. Here, Kay is worried about where Lori's at, okay? She says, I have reason to believe they're still in the area due to her niece, Melanie, and Brandon Boudreaux's divorce status. I'm assuming Melanie can't move out of the area due to child visitation restrictions for her, common mandate where parental visitation is concerned. Melanie is in a cult with Lori, which is reason for Mel and Brandon's divorce. This is when JJ seemingly is still alive, and Kay knows all this and is telling Nathan all of this. She also says this, Blank told me this recently, that Lori doesn't want JJ. He ties her down and she can't handle him anymore. A friend of Charles who doesn't know Lori's family that I spoke with Friday told me the same thing. It triggered a memory of Charles telling me the exact same thing. I responded that Lori said that only to hurt him and that she didn't mean it. This is me being gullible. I can't imagine a mother feeling that way because I can't believe a mother could feel that way. It dawned on me that when Lori split on January 30th, that's why JJ's clothes were gone too. It puzzled me since it happened. She took Charles and JJ's belongings because it was going to keep the house but didn't want either one of them. It all makes sense now. My epiphany has significantly heightened our concerns for JJ's safety and well-being. I placed calls Friday to his school administrator, one of his teachers, and the attorney who handled their divorce proceeding in February, which Charles didn't follow through. We want to have court-ordered visitation if necessary. I say that knowing she won't give up trying to keep us away. Not that she wants him, it's that she wants to punish us too. Except murder me too would not be that smart. I say that, but I'm having numerous profile views on my LinkedIn profile, and all from Phoenix and Utah areas. I know nobody there except for Lori and family. Is that not creepy, guys? Her texts to me about 2 weeks ago were pics of the original insurance policy naming her beneficiary, then the one where Charles named me. Next text, it's redacted, but we know that was the one where she was complaining about how she had all these kids and that Kay got the $1 million. She's pissed. I suppose she's having her cult friends try to intimidate me on LinkedIn. She's got to do more than that. I wish she would call and ask for money if she gives us JJ. You know what? That greedy woman, she should have just done that. She should have just asked for some of that money in exchange for JJ. I know that's on her mind, she says here. It would be stupid on her part. You said not to trust blank and blank, which we don't. I share only superficial thoughts and mostly listen to her complain about how dysfunctional blank family is. My thought, if they're using me to siphon information, why couldn't I share something not true with them and kind of set up Lori? Just a thought. Ay, guys. Ay. Kay had their number before JJ was even dead, guys. Bless her heart, here on October 27th, Kay is reaching out to Nathan again, saying, please contact me as soon as possible. We hear there are numerous things happening that have bearing on Charles's murder, thanks. In this correspondence where Kay Woodcock had sent the information after Christmas, she is talking about how she was looking for JJ's DNA results. By the way, JJ's birth name was Canaan. Just so you know, his birth name was Canaan Todd Trahan. And she notes here that Charles N. Loco changed his name at the adoption. She's looking for his DNA results, and she's going to give that to law enforcement. In this correspondence, Kay is helping law enforcement with the picture of Charles's license plate, and she makes a note that it's a handicap plate. So essentially, I'm guessing that the cars that they used had handicap plates because JJ, quote, takes off whenever he chooses, even if holding his hand in parking lots, it's especially dangerous. I call this correspondence Kay Woodcock spills the tea. And if you need to push pause on this and just read it at your leisure, that's okay. I'll read some of it here. She, meaning Lori, she did not work the entire 13 years they were married, no matter where they lived. She now has no visible means of support. They didn't have much money in the bank. I have access to the business account, and it's got $50 in it. But they have several accounts at Chase. I think the main reason for moving is to put as much space between her and Phoenix. Numerous relatives feel she has everything to do with Charles being shot to death. Her relationship with Alex is weird. I mean, seriously, how many brothers would taser someone for her like he did to her last husband, then had to do time, one of 2 to 3 assaults, and then now Charles? I guarantee my 2 remaining brothers love me, but you don't cross certain lines. Alex obviously doesn't understand that. I found Charles's social security statement, which showed spouse raising minor child entitled to redacted. Minor child entitled to redacted. So this is Kay talking about how Lori's going from a certain amount per month to whatever she's got now. And I think we now know that it was around $4,800 she'd be getting from the different Social Security revenue streams. That will be a hard pill for her to swallow. Again, the reduction in the income that the standard of living that she was entitled to is going to go down quite a bit. We fully expect her to find the next out in Hawaii if she doesn't already have one, because the chances of next finding out about Charles's demise and chances they would see the suspicious cloud over her is greatly lessened. Now at this point, the next would be like the next person Lori gloms onto, the next sugar daddy or whatever. Little does Kay know at this point in the story is that the next person will be Chad, the person that Lori's having an affair with, whose wife will then die. So Tammy will die, and then Lori will decide to be with Chad, and that will be the quote-unquote next. Kay continues, Hawaii. She and Charles both loved it there. How she's affording the move is a good question. Charles supported her family to the tune of approximately, redacted, per month. Cell phone lines alone, there were 22 for cell phones, iPads, earbuds, etc. for her son. Daughter Tylee, redacted. Both Lori's parents' devices, plus he bought all those devices to boot. Blank got married January 2018. Rarely works. Now as of February, they have a baby. Charles pays for redacted. And then, of course, his and Lori's, which that's to be expected. So from what Kay is saying here, that not only is Charles, of course, paying for his own family, meaning him and his wife, Lori, and their extended family, JJ, Tylee, but also he was paying for essentially 22 different devices, and that both Lori's parents, he bought the devices and was paying allegedly for their services. So, there's other people here that are redacted. Seems like Charles was real generous. She adds, quote, he paid blank's rent, groceries, baby necessities, plus every time Lori wanted to vacay, Charles paid the bills from whomever they brought with them. Lori bullied Charles to the point of emasculation. He was so blind, it was pathetic. He and I have had numerous combos about this. He would always respond, but I love her. He made me crazy because I began to see how she used him badly within the past year. And by December 20th, 2019, Kay is frantic and she wants to post on Facebook about JJ being missing, and she says how she hasn't proved this, but she wants to get the story out. So she basically recounts what has gone on within the family, and she wants to make this public. I'm going to read this in part because Kay is just spot on. She talks about how they had adopted JJ and that Lori was a wonderful, loving, attentive mother. Then she joined a cult and changed. Charles was murdered on July 11th, 2019 in Chandler, Arizona, and she goes on to recall the alleged attack. She continues, Charles strongly suspected her of having an affair with Chad Daybell, cult leader. Lori and numerous others are in the same cult. As things played out, Charles was 100% spot on. Mid-August, Lori, JJ, and Tylee moved to Rexburg to be near her married lover, Chad. Alex and his niece moved there too. Niece followed suit as Aunt Lori on October 2nd when Alex attempted to murder her husband, Brandon. Due to Alex's terrible marksmanship, thankfully he missed. Brandon went into hiding, gained protective sole custody of their 4 beautiful children because their mother abandoned them for the same cult. Now, mind you, this is just Kay Woodcock. This is what she wrote, and I'm just reading it. On October 19th, Chad Daybell's wife, Tamara, didn't awaken and no autopsy performed. She was buried in Utah near where her family resides. Once a connection was made, thanks to Brandon, law enforcement began investigating her death, culminating in her exhumation. In the midst of all this, Larry and I became increasingly concerned for JJ's welfare. When law enforcement finally performed welfare checks in our behalf, it became apparent things were amiss. Lori claimed her friend had him in Phoenix. Once her friend spoke to law enforcement, she denied knowing JJ's whereabouts. At the same time, Lori claimed we have JJ, and apparently it's not true. Now Lori and her new husband, Chad Daybell, married approximately 1 month after Tamara's death, are in hiding. I wonder where her next lie will be. Come on, Lori. Where are Tylee and JJ? Since Alex died on December 12th in Gilbert, Arizona, Tylee is missing. You're the last one standing who attended my brother's murder. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Tell us where JJ and Tylee are. Be truthful for the first time in a long time. Be a Christian like you proclaim to be. You're an evil monster. We deplore you. And I speak for us, our families, and friends. Kay Woodcock. Insert mic drop. And Kay and Larry wanted to be there for the news release and also to reach out to JJ's teacher to try to find out what his demeanor was like at school. Kay mentions how she wants to look the Daybell family in the eyes to ensure they grasp our loss. And she also wants to discredit any BS that quote-unquote Loco is saying, and that she wants everybody to know our story and truth. So now we're going to look at some of the documents that mention Alex Cox's association with the country of Colombia. From what I can guess, it looks like it was some kind of previous dating situation that he had done there years before. Perhaps, you know, where you have Americans that go to another country and try to find a wife, and so they have all these different women to choose from, and they try to hook up, match make. I think that's what this involved. I'm not sure, but there is also some wire transfers that are in the file, so I'm going to show you those. So here's a response to Cole Vallow from the detective, because Cole was basically asking why in the world Alex Cox, as a convicted felon, had a firearm essentially to shoot his father. And they tell him that his charge had been reduced to a misdemeanor, and so he was actually legally carrying his firearm, you know, the one that he shot Charles Vallow with. Also, it seems that Cole Vallow had been looking on the social media of Alex and saw that there was a Colombia trip, and so Nathan, the investigator, is replying back to Cole and saying, I'm guessing that the Colombia trip was by chance, as he was on vacation for a few weeks at the time of the incident. We are still working on the case and anxiously awaiting the cell phone records we have requested under the search warrant. So basically, I'm thinking that Cole Vallow brought up the Colombia angle to the detectives. All these documents are filled with little random bits of information. I direct your attention to the final paragraph regarding the money transfers here. It says, Alex sent 3 separate money transfers between 2015 and 2018 to individuals in Colombia. Attached are the money transfer details. Lori, Melanie, and Tylee were negative, so they hadn't done any money transfers. This is what's in the file. It looks like it was possibly once in an Excel spreadsheet, and they just threw it into Word, and that's why everything's all mushed together like this, and the cell isn't expanded. They've redacted the pay agent, but you can see that all the transactions went to Colombia. So although the Colombian money transfers were before anything happened in all these cases, the investigation showed that the last booked travel was between July 14th, 2019 and July 19th by Alex. He booked a trip between Phoenix and Colombia. That's the country of Colombia. Border crossing history indicates he took this flight. He doesn't have any other border crossing history after this July trip. Lori's last border crossing activity occurred in September of 2017. So this is before any of the things that happened in this case. When she took a trip to Cancun, JJ was negative for border activity and for ARC results. Now we got to wonder, okay, so Alex actually physically went to Colombia between July 14th, 2019 and July 19th, 2019. You got to ask yourself in the timeline, what was going on here? Well, this is right after the murder of Charles Vallow. By July 15th, Lori's calling the insurance company to find out, how much money she's going to get. But she wasn't his listed beneficiary. So by the 18th, she's finding out that, hey, she's not getting that insurance money. So this is about the time that everything is kind of hitting the fan. They're buying the, hey, this is a self-defense murder of Charles by Alex, so maybe he realized the heat wasn't on so he could come back. But at the same time that this is going on, Lori's also finding out she's not getting that sweet insurance money. Maybe, one could speculate that she was going to give Alex a chunk of it and wire it over to Colombia. We never know. It's nearly impossible to keep everything in order here. Now we're going to talk about the documentation regarding the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux that's in this document dump. This is fascinating. Ryan, what is the telephone number that Alex's phone was in touch with during the Gilbert shooting time frame that came back to the Hispanic female? What this is telling me is that they're seeing, or they think they see, that Alex's phone is calling a Hispanic female during the Gilbert shooting time frame. What's the Gilbert shooting time frame? The attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. Is that not crazy? Why is Alex, around the time of attempting murder on Brandon, talking to either someone in Colombia or Zulema Pastenes, Hispanic female? That's just my supposition. So now let's look at what's in the file regarding the death of Alex Cox. An update reference: Alexander Cox. He is deceased as of 4:19 yesterday, December 12th. He was found with labored breathing, unresponsive, at his shared residence with Zulema. Zulema and her family refused to provide statements to me, but they talked with initial officers. I'm going to review body-worn camera footage and talk more with those who obtained statements during the service of a residential warrant, and then this is redacted, and I think they talk about what they seized. So that's redacted. Processing of the phones is in the works. I talked with the medical examiner about this case. Again, redacted. Contact with Alex and Lori's parents has not happened yet. However, Gilbert Intel is working on getting redacted. This is the case that keeps on giving. I'm going to have to break this video into another part because it's getting quite long, but I did want to mention the VALLOW website because a lot of the news agencies, they really glossed over it and said, oh, there's a bunch of screen captures from the VALLOW website and all this stuff. And I found it rather interesting to look through the posts on the VALLOW website. So let's take a look at them. There's like 200 posts, so I've cherry picked them. And I think these are kind of in order of the dawning realization of the horror. And I believe this person here is either the owner of the site or maybe the person that runs the board. I'm not sure. But he writes, what the hell is going on here? This is not the Chad Daybell that I know. Something is seriously wrong. Remarried right after his wife dies in her sleep? Last I spoke to him, he was moving to Hawaii for 3 to 4 months to write a book and take a step back from everything and contemplate life. So that's allegedly what Chad had told this person. Someone writes, sounds like someone on a VALLOW who knows Chad real well needs to contact him and ask that question. And this person replies, he won't reply to any of my attempts to contact him, but he logged in here on a VALLOW today about 6 hours ago. So he is around and still participating by watching and reading the forums. Now keep in mind, some of these people knew him, some of these people didn't know him, some of these people only read his books, some of these people met him through conferences, some of these people had never met him or read his books, okay? So you have people who want to believe him and want to see the good in him, and then you have people that are immediately skeptical, okay? This lady writes, Lori does podcasts for Preparing a People. It looks like she had Chad on there September 16th of this year. I can't get the podcast to work right now, though. My mind is spinning. There must be a reasonable explanation for at least part of this, right? Another person chimes in, I've never formed an opinion on Chad either way. I will say I was really concerned, though, back several months ago when he gave an experience talking about witnessing a vision of several men in white robes raising their wives from their graves. But the women were in the clothes they were buried in or chose to be raised in, and he spoke of one being raised in a beautiful red dress. I know spirits are often in spirit in the clothes they died in, but not resurrected beings. those who went through the temple and are being resurrected will all surely be raised in temple robes, not just the husbands. This really bothered me at the time and did not sit well. I've struggled with him ever since. So he's allegedly going around talking about having visions of raising dead wives from their graves. I mean, I just can't. This is so creepy. And this post title, none of this is the least bit surprising. I really would just like to point out that I was completely freaked out by not only Chad's actions after his wife's death, posting on Avow hours after her death and liking and responding to people's responses the entire day and on about her death, but also all of you for even remotely thinking any part of that was normal. Can I just insert a hand clap here? Clap, clap, clap. Okay. Seeing condolence messages to a clearly deranged man who wouldn't get off the forum the day his wife dies suddenly made me sick. It made me wonder if any of you have any kind of discernment at all. I almost didn't want to come back here. I was thinking, am I going crazy here? What's happening? Am I off? So I went to his Facebook page to get a good look at him, to do what I do with just a pic, and sure enough, I saw the devil in him. Knew there was foul play. I don't know what it means or how he got there, but it was true nonetheless. I don't mean to get on my high horse and say I knew it, but it was pretty disturbing, and at the very least, this community will have to gain my trust. Discernment, no matter the form of righteousness, is very important. There's absolutely foul play, and Chad Daybell would be in prison. Sorry if that hurt your feelings. There's a big lesson here to be learned. I've had to learn it too. It's a tough pill to swallow. Another person posted, "This is not looking good for Chad. We don't have all the information we need, but the information we do have is very damning. No surprise that the police aren't talking, except to Hector, apparently. Some of my questions have to do with the ex-husband's death. When was he shot? Who were the witnesses? Who besides the shooter was present? Did the 7-year-old witness the shooting? Perhaps his son saw too much. All the behavior from Chad does not speak to an innocent explanation. I concede not knowing Chad, but my impressions were to keep distance. His judgment regarding Julie Rowe was flawed, and it made me cringe. When his wife died so suddenly and in such an inexplicable way, I thought it more odd. Now to find out he remarried immediately with someone he had a long friendship with, then the new wife's children turn up missing, especially the special needs child who may have seen his father killed, and then Chad lies to police and flees. Now Tammy's body is exhumed. Yeah, there's probably some simple explanation for all of this." This fellow takes up for Chad and says, "I was at the viewing and spoke with him, then hugged him and felt his spirit in a one-on-one moment. I was at the funeral and heard his tear-filled emotional tribute to his wife and how devastated he was at her unexpected loss and how they had been like magnets to each other their entire adult lives. I was at the graveside and saw him interacting with his children and his extended family. Somehow in all of that close examination, I completely missed what you were able to learn from a photo on Facebook. It's really weird how we could have such totally opposite reactions to the situation at that time. My discernment must really be broken." So I'm going to include here some of the phone numbers and some of the vehicle information that have been released in this document dump. Much of it is redacted, but if you look at the subject line, sometimes you can figure it out. So for those of us who are super anal, super OCD, are making timelines and keeping track of the phone numbers as we can figure them out, this will be the kind of stuff you're going to look at later. So let's look at it. The vehicles that were registered to Lori Ann Charles were as follows: a Jeep with Texas plates, the plate numbers are redacted; a black Infiniti, redacted; a Nissan Rogue, redacted. The vehicle registered to Melanie Boudreau was a white Nissan Telluride, redacted, and Alex Cox had registered a Ford F-150. And in another copied message, you can see the plates. The Nissan Rogue was Arizona plates. Then the Ford F-150 had Arizona plates. So sometimes the redactions aren't consistent. And these are the phone numbers. So you can look here that if you count the number of redactions, Lori Vallow had 6 phones. Or we could say 6 known phones. I don't know how many of the burners they've included here. And you also have to remember that after Tylee is murdered, then however many phones that she had are also available to be used. Here's a little bit of investigative information regarding the phone numbers. The question is, can anyone point out where the individual units were for Lori, Alex, Melanie that they rented in this complex? Also, do we possibly have the Ring doorbell footage from October 9th? It looks like Chad's 401 phone possibly came to the apartment complex around 1:20 and stayed for about an hour. So now we know that Chad's has a 401 number. So when you see the 401, that's usually Chad's. So there were two pasted images. The first picture is from the GPS associated with Alex's Google account, and the second one is of Chad's 401 number, and it's texting with Alex, which was 334. So now we know Alex is 334, Chad is 401, and then Lori's is 480. So they've attached the October 9th call interactions for the entire day. And then they have the call interactions from just 1900 to 2300. And it says the Cox 9120 true subscribed phone. So that must be his phone, his actual phone, not a burner phone. Appears to stay at or near the apartments during the attempted shooting. It makes an outbound text at 2116 to Lori. I'm showing drive time from apartment to Chad's as about 10 minutes. It shows up again at 23:28 when it sends an outbound text to redacted. We can't see the towers associated with the text since it's Verizon, but the Google location information is there for the relevant time period. I can bookend the Google location data for Alex's account from 21:23 to 23:42:43 at the apartment. What was happening on October 9th, you may ask? This was the attempted murder on Tammy Daybell. So it looks like the police and the law enforcement are trying to nail down who shot at Tammy Daybell. And they're looking at maybe a burner phone here, because it says redacted was activated on 10/9 and has an IMEI of redacted. And they say that they believe it's in Rexburg's possession. And if you look at underneath it, someone had logged into Lori's iCloud data to check the numbers on the sheet, and that she has a certain number and she stored it as quote unquote Spencer's wife, and that there are two calls on November 3rd and one on November 4th. Now, is there a real Spencer's wife, or is this something that she just titled it that way to avoid any kind of question? Is this the 401 number? Because if you look at the subject, it says regarding Daybell 401. Did she put in her phone Chad's 401 number and called it Spencer's wife? Is that not crazy? Like, you know what I mean? Like someone you shouldn't be calling. And so when you put the number in, you don't put in their real name, you put in a fake name, Spencer's wife. Just food for thought. The FBI notes, I'd call this a clue. Records from the 401 ATT number. Starts making calls on October 8th and only communicates with Lori's known and Alex's throw phone. Working on report now. And this is one of Charles Vallow's Verizon bills to show that, and I believe it shows here that he had 13 participating voice lines that he was paying for. In this document, the FBI had done some open source information on Clear and provided a P.O. Box 415 associated with both Lori and Alex. Here's a follow-up. Postal just returned the P.O. Box application for Box 415. It's registered in Lori's name with Alex's name listed as another individual receiving mail there. The physical address associated with the box is redacted. Her listed phone number and email address is redacted and redacted. She used a Hawaiian driver's license as identification. I put a call into Honolulu to have them pull the license for us, and I'll forward it along as soon as I see it. And if you look at the previous information, you can see the unredacted that the P.O. Box is located in Sugar City, Idaho. Now let's look at the Pulowski's correspondence with law enforcement. Rick makes a note. Melanie Boudreau just reached out to me through Ian. That would be Ian Pulowski. She told me that she wanted to do the right thing and help clear her name. She said she had a lot of information but was hesitant to provide it in an interview setting at this time due to her previous bad experiences with the police. She said she wanted to write a written statement to start, and then we could ask her follow questions based on what was in the statement. I told her that would be fine, and we appreciated any assistance she was willing to provide. She mentioned getting some nasty texts from people about what is going on with Chad and Lori and wants to clear her name. Melanie raised 2 issues with me and asked me to find out for her. The first was if she could get back some personal property from Rexburg that includes a computer. I told her I would check on the status and let her know. I already talked to Ray about it. They have them, but have not gotten the warrant yet to search them. The second was if there was a way to get us to help get some Christmas gifts from her to her children. She knows she cannot try to contact them herself. I told her I would check. Perhaps Ryan can see if that is something that Brandon would accept. If he would, we could arrange to have them shipped to a third-party address who can see that her children get them. We had heard from Ian last Friday that Melanie was planning to seek legal advice from Chad Lori's attorney, but she did not say anything about being represented to me, and that attorney has never reached out to say he represents her. Melanie plans to work on the statement tonight. I told her I would follow up tomorrow and see how it's coming. Update from Ian. By the way, this would be Ian Pulowski. Ian and I spoke this evening, and he said Chad/Lori called Melanie last night. Chad/Lori said Rexburg PD has contacted 2 of Chad's children and threatened them that they were going to exhume Tammy's body. Chad/Lori think it's a lie that they are really going to exhume the body. Chad/Lori don't seem to know that the exhumation really took place, or at least they are not saying it to Ian. I didn't tell Ian that it had already happened. Chad Lori feel that they are being bullied by Rexburg PD and plan to get a lawyer to represent the family, including Chad's kids. His kids will then just refer future law enforcement contact to the lawyer. Chad Lori have heard a rumor that the FBI is involved, but again, think this is a scare tactic from the police and don't think the FBI is really involved. Chad Lori are still not saying where they are, but think things will calm down in a few weeks and may move back to stay with Melanie and Ian. Redacted. Ian had turned in the recorder to get downloaded on Friday. On a side note, you guys know that he was recording everybody, right? So the call with Chad Lori was not recorded. And this is the last one for today. We're going to look at Lori VALLOW DAYBELL, whether she was getting money from the state, from Social Security, and what is in the file regarding that. This document has a lot of information. If you look at the middle large paragraph, almost near the last sentence, it says, he also mentioned that Rexburg PD believes that Lori was receiving $4,800 a month from the state, they think from Arizona, for taking care of JJ due to his conditions/disabilities. He's going to see how they learn that information. So again, that's the magic $4,800. I think it might be a little more, but I'm not sure. I'd have to double check. But in theory, for most of us, I think we could survive on $4,800 a month, maybe survive quite nicely, nice lower to middle class living. Granted, it wasn't what Lori was used to, but by that same token, she was still an able-bodied woman and could go back to work, right? I think this is a good stopping point. I want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope that you learned a little bit more, that maybe this is something that the mainstream media didn't show you if you didn't have a chance to read through the 2,500 pages. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please hit the like. Please ring that subscribe bell and leave a comment in the comment section below. And without further ado, have an excellent day.